It's called integral circling, and I'm curious if Ken Wilbur had his actual hands on it, or if it just came up in that milieu. So okay,
No, Ken was just the godfather of all of it, you know?
gotcha.
So as far as I know, at least 90% of the known circling and authentically relating leaders studied his work in depth before they started teaching.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And the godmother was Susan Campbell. So Susan Campbell, yeah.
Susie C.
She wrote this book called Getting Real, which was the first book that they would assign in T3 that we read. And, you know, she made this really cool distinction of like, are you communicating to control or are you communicating to connect, which is right. So, yeah. So, and years later, I got to interview her on my podcast, and she came to one of our conferences, the Relational Leadership Conference. But she didn't teach us directly. It was more like they were the conceptual parents of this, because Ken was so heady and into human development, and Susan was so practical and like, yeah. And I just feel so like this is so fun for me. I can just go in so many directions. I want to hear which direction you want me to go in.
Well, I just feel so excited. I guess that it was recently, I mean, sometime in the last year that Jonathan calls me up and he's like, oh, I just found this book. It's called Getting Real by this woman, Susan Campbell. And he's like, it seems like all this stuff is like really heavily related to authentic, like that he discovered it. And then now there's this confirmation that that was, you know, something that fed into it. Is just, it's confirming and exciting that, you know, on our own separate path, like that was the, you know, that you found that route and that there is a clear line, like there's a clear line from her to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm noticing too I was surprised when I found Getting Real that it's like early aughties, right? That it was released, something like that. And then I mean she's like practicing long before that. It's not like she just like started thinking about it in the aughties, but it's like it alerted me to, wow, there's been a lot of thinking is like converging here in this space. And I really like the way you phrase it, kind of like her as this practical tools based, like it's like tactical in a way. Mm-hmm. And then Wilbur provides more it's kind of this like, headier theoretical, like stitching everything together, the putty to like shape everything. Because in a lot of ways, what I have found so strange about circling is that I can have intellectual discussions about the practice and what just happened in the practice from now till the end of time. Mm-hmm. But then it also has given me this just felt intuitive sense of how to connect with myself while connecting with others. So it's very strange that it develops you in these two, you know, contradictory directions. Mm-hmm. So you're practicing this integral circling, and then there's also you mentioned Guy Sangstock in Circling Europe. I'm wondering, was Sangstock doing his thing yet?
Yeah, he actually was teaching before the Integral Center ever started. You know, that's why he's credited as the founder of circling, or the person that coined the term. And then he took a break from teaching, and then Decker kind of brought circling to Boulder, and through the shaping of Robert McNaughton and Michael Porcelli and Josh Levin, who are all my teachers, like the magic that Decker was doing, like he would put his attention on someone and he would like, it was like he could see the matrix, like that moment in the matrix where Neo sees the code. And then he could simultaneously deeply accept you exactly where you are and ask you questions and give you reflections that in a way that really helped people blossom in development. Wow. So the early leaders that I just mentioned, they were just watching Decker and they're like, how the heck do we teach this? How do we systematize it? How do we put it into a model? And so, Michael Porcelli created the first model of authentic relating in a lot of ways. And like my book is extremely heavily influenced by him because he's the one who systematized the curriculum of T3 and took the first stab at it, which was, 4 or 5, it was maybe 5 years before I wrote my book. So, wow. Yeah.